That day, Evan left work early to go to the store and buy his mom a birthday present. Sitting behind the wheel of his old Chevrolet, the man left the parking lot and headed towards the shopping mall, which was about half a mile away. Glancing at his reflection in the rearview mirror, Ethan smiled skeptically. "I'm only 25, and I already look like a typical office clerk. My face is pale, and my eyes are all watery from using the computer so much. My parents might be right when they say I need to devote more of my time to personal life and get a girlfriend," the man thought sadly. Ethan got pulled out of his sad thoughts by the young woman who appeared in front of his car when she was trying to cross the road in the wrong place. The man hit the brakes sharply, and fortunately, the car screeched, but stopped a few inches away from the frightened stranger. She was wearing an old, worn-out sweater and matching jeans. Her hair was tied in a bun, and her face didn't have any makeup on it. The woman got scared, and her eyes, red from fatigue and unshed tears, looked reproachfully at Ethan, forcing him to look away in embarrassment. Realizing that the stranger needed help, Ethan got out of the car and stepped closer to the woman. "Are you okay? Do you need medical help?" the man asked sympathetically. "No, thank you. It's my fault. It's all my fault," the stranger replied, making a strange sniffling sound. Feeling an irresistible desire to help the woman, Ethan offered to take her home. "I don't have a home. I live on the street. My mom died 3 years ago, and my father brought another woman to our house. All she does is drink all day long," the stranger answered. Only now did Ethan realize that the woman in front of him was homeless. Nevertheless, he was very sorry for her. Life treated her unfairly, and it wasn't her fault that she ended up living on the street. Ethan thought for a moment, and then invited the stranger to have dinner at his house. He did it mostly to help out the woman, but also a bit to annoy his parents. "You see, it's my mom's birthday today. I think she'll be very happy to have some guests over," the man added. The woman looked at Ethan intently, and then shook her head in doubt. She understood perfectly well that the man's parents were unlikely to be happy if a homeless person would have joined their celebration. But Ethan showed remarkable perseverance, and eventually the woman agreed. As it turned out a little later, the beggar he'd helped was Veronica Adams. Having learned that it was Ethan's mother's birthday, the woman helped him pick out a gift for her. Actually, if it weren't for Veronica, Ethan would have spent twice as much time at the store. The man truly didn't like to go shopping, especially alone. When they finally chose a gift, the young people went to Ethan's place. During the entire drive, Veronica kept looking out the window, as if afraid of meeting the man's parents. In the meantime, Barbara Lewis was setting the table. There were many delicious dishes, such as duck baked with apples and cherry jam pie. The woman's beloved husband, David, helped her get the dinner ready. They've been happily married for nearly 30 years. They met back at the university and have been virtually inseparable ever since. Ethan was born when his parents had already been married for about 5 years. They tried to have a baby all that time, but were unsuccessful. At some point, Barbara and David got so tired of trying and failing that they decided to adopt a child from an orphanage. And they would have probably done it if a real miracle didn't happen. It all started with the fact that one day, Barbara Lewis was feeling dizzy and nauseous. The woman didn't pay any attention to her discomfort and assumed that she was going down with the cold. However, when she kept feeling the same symptoms over and over again, Barbara decided to see a doctor. It was then that she learned that the cause of her discomfort was the early stages of a long-awaited pregnancy. It was the happiest moment in the young couple's life. Although the pregnancy was difficult, the labor was surprisingly easy and painless. The birth of little Ethan immediately divided the life of the Lewis family into a before and after. Having surrounded the newborn baby with love and care, Barbara swore that she would do everything in her power to ensure that her son was always happy. That's why the woman was extremely upset by the fact that by the age of 25, her son didn't have a girlfriend yet. And now, carefully setting the table for the celebratory dinner, Barbara was thinking about her son, Ethan. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the car engine coming from outside. and the rusting of tires on the gravel. And here comes our son. Look, David, he's not alone. He brought a woman. Barbara Lewis exclaimed in surprise, looking out the window. But she didn't need to comment, since her husband was already rushing to the door to greet the arriving guests. Mom, Dad, meet Veronica. I invited her to our celebratory dinner, Ethan said, plucking up his courage. As a true gentleman, David Lewis didn't let it show that he was surprised by the way his son's guest was dressed. But when the woman of the house saw Veronica, her surprise knew no bounds. Who's that woman our son invited? What is she, some homeless person from an alley? The woman thought anxiously. Meanwhile, Evan ignored his parents' dumbfounded looks and showed Veronica to the bathroom where she could wash up. Then he gave his mother her gift and kissed her on both cheeks. Thank you, son. This is very nice. And who's that woman with you? She's not one of those beggars who live on the street, is she? Mrs. Lewis asked cautiously. Ethan just shook his head accusingly in response and hurried to change the topic of the conversation. Veronica soon returned from the bathroom and sat at the corner of the table, feeling rather uncomfortable around the owners of the house. Praising the culinary skills of Mrs. Lewis, the woman spoke very briefly about her life. Asking for another serving of potatoes, she added that she was in a very different situation at the moment and had nowhere to live. However, Veronica was embarrassed to talk about the reasons that caused her current predicament and preferred not to touch up on that topic. But Mrs. Lewis already understood what was going on. The woman realized that it was Veronica's parents who were most likely responsible for it. Looks like a beggar, but she's so nice. Maybe we should let her stay with us for a while. Barbara caught herself thinking. To Barbara's great surprise, Veronica turned out to be very interesting to talk to and behaved nothing like the homeless people she was used to meeting on the street. They chatted until late at night, and the next morning they began to clean the house and wash the dishes together. The weekend flew by quickly. Barbara involuntarily realized that she hadn't had such a nice time in quite a while. The woman liked her son's friend, but at the same time, she couldn't stop worrying that Veronica might not be who she pretended to be. Barbara feared that she would wake up one morning to find that her house would be robbed. Meanwhile, Ethan began to spend more and more time with Veronica. He seemed to be drawn to her like a magnet. The week dragged on slowly, and it seemed to the young guest that an eternity had passed since she first came to see the Lewis family home. At the same time, she took an active part in the life of Ethan and his parents. Veronica cleaned the house, did the laundry, and helped Mrs. Lewis in the kitchen. Unable to contain her emotions, Barbara embraced her son's friend, feeling a warm and hitherto unknown feeling arise in her soul. Well, David, our son will definitely have a great life with such a woman. She'd make a great companion for him, Mrs. Lewis told her husband. Meanwhile, Ethan realized that he developed real feelings for Veronica. For the first time in his life, his heart was full of love and passion. At first, he simply wanted to help the homeless woman, and now he was actually ready to marry her. And then, the sound of police sirens filled the Lewis family home. At that moment, Veronica was busy helping Barbara clean up the lawn. To Ethan's surprise, the police officers immediately put Veronica in the patrol car and without saying a single word, drove away in an unknown direction. Of course, the man tried to catch up with the law enforcement officers, but as fortune would have it, his Chevrolet ran out of gas on that fateful evening. My God, was I right all along? Is Veronica really a thief? And why not? She found a big house full of expensive things. Maybe she decided to rob us. Barbara Lewis thought bitterly. Deep down, David agreed with his wife. He understood that Veronica was very strange and looked more like a thief than a respectable young woman. And only Ethan refused to believe that his beloved could be a criminal. After the incident with Veronica's detention, he repeatedly tried to contact the police station for clarification, but he never got any information. The truth came only a week later, when a limousine stopped at the Lewis family home. Having quickly run out into the street, Ethan froze in surprise. The fact was that Veronica came out of the expensive car. Having smiled at the driver, she asked him to wait for her. "How is that possible? What's going on here?" Ethan asked, having a hard time containing his emotions. "Well, dear, there's a few things you don't know about me, but I fell in love with you because you accepted me for who I am," the woman answered with a smile. As it turned out a little later, Veronica Adams was the daughter of a wealthy oil man. Unfortunately, after the death of his wife, Charles Adams brought a new woman into his home who became his daughter's stepmother. Unfortunately, Veronica and her stepmother didn't exactly get along well right away. Veronica couldn't accept the woman as her brand new mother and left the home in protest. At this point, Charles Adams decided to teach his daughter a lesson and blocked all of her accounts and credit cards. So, Veronica found herself on the street without any money or her father's support. However, the young woman refused to give up and learned to take care of herself. It was about at this time that Veronica met Ethan and came up with the legend that her parents were alcoholics. Of course, she didn't know that all this time, her father was waiting for his daughter to come back home. Finally, tired of all the stress and anxiety, the millionaire turned to the police, and so the police officers eventually returned his daughter home. Veronica was glad to reconcile with her father and even decided to accept her stepmother. The fact was that she had already fallen in love with Ethan, and she really didn't want to lose such a wonderful guy. After listening to Veronica's confession, Ethan pulled her in and kissed her gently. Barbara and David Lewis heard the entire conversation and couldn't help but shed a few tears at the sight of their son's happiness. Now, the couple knew that Ethan made the right choice, and from now on, his life would be filled with true love and devotion.